Hello, this is TelecomTV. We're here in San Jose in California at the ETSI NFV number 11 event, and I'm talking with Ramki Krishnan, who is the Distinguished Engineer and Chief Technology Officer NFV with Dell Networking at, of course, Dell. And Ramki, it's good to meet you. We're going to be talking for a few minutes about how you unify NFV research, standards and open source into one whole. So let's begin by asking this. What are the key NFV research standards and open source organizations which Dell participates in?
On the NFV research front, I lead the initiative in IETF, which is the NFV research group. And on the standards front, we participate in ETSI NFV and IETF. And on the open source front, we are very active in OP NFV. We also have a board representation and also in Open Daylight and OpenStack.
Why is it necessary to be a member of so many different organizations?
As you know, Dell is, believes in openness, completely open. So obviously, that really is the real need.
Okay, thank you. Now, what are the key NFV research areas as far as Dell is concerned?
So, as far as Dell is concerned, when you think about research, it's really about driving innovation, not just academic research. That means we are focused on some topics which are forward-thinking but can deliver customer value. So now diving into the details, what we feel is in the NFV, where NFV is progressing towards are these macro trends, where essentially we see a convergence and infrastructure where really when you talk to telcos, they're fixed networks, mobile networks, and also residential or enterprise networks, all are converging to a single infrastructure. That's number one. And number two, we also have IoT and residential use cases being served with operators, right? And also we see interesting use cases around SD-WAN as a service being offered by the operators. And now in this space, how we help operators move forward in these use cases are solving some interesting problems around. One of the areas which we are working on is around smart placement, where we make sure that the resources of the operator are optimally used, delivering the maximal performance. And taking to the next level, we are also thinking about how this can help make the infrastructure more agile, be faster in deploying services. And on that front, tying this together, we see containers as a way to move this NFV forward at a much faster pace than where things are with virtual machines today.
What do you mean by containers in the NFV context?
So essentially, containers, is just it's a standard definition which is there today for applications. It's nothing new, but all we are saying is essentially all your virtual network functions are available in a container form factor.
Right.
That's what you mean.
So Ramki, let's get to the nub of the problem, the issue here. How does NFV research work tie into the open source and the open standards you've been talking about? How do you go about doing it and what effect does it have?
Absolutely. Very good question. So the first thing we try to do is whatever research activities we're doing result in contributions to open source of some form. It's not an abstract architecture which you're pushing, but a real implementation. Case in point, the work we did around smart placement, early work, was a contribution to the project in OpenStack, specifically OpenStack Congress. And in fact, in specific cases we are thinking there could be new projects which are generated from research work. So that is one way we are approaching tying the research and open source. And also what we are trying to do is move the needle on the standards front equally. So for example, any of the any research work which results in open source, as it moves forward towards an implementation, specific implementation, that can become a real standard, right? So for example, the work we are doing in service function chaining around optimization, what we are thinking is essentially a route to open source and then potentially a contribution in the IETF SFC working group, or it could be a contribution in ETSI NFV IFA group. So these are kind of our plans and thought process around that, tying all these pieces together.
Now, a final question to you then is this. Given that there are a large number, an ever-increasing number of standards bodies and standards initiatives and open source and various other open initiatives, do you think that that is necessarily a good thing for NFV or a bad thing? And the reason I'm asking this is because it strikes me that many of these organisations talk about openness, but their concept of open is different one from the other. There's no one definition of what open is.
I think great question. We also see a similar parallel, right? I mean, in fact, when you talk, especially the VNFs, right? We have different VNF implementations from different vendors. The same firewall from sources from different VNF vendors, and it's a similar challenge. But what we also feel is that how the open source world works is more of kind of a person has a point of view. Not even sometimes it may not be even a company that it comes and kind of has some implementation and makes some noise around it. So what we need to be smart about is kind of filter the signal from the noise and work with the right open source organizations. And even there, what we also see is that though initially some of these open source organizations take off big time with a lot of support, and then start announcing projects, soon community interest drops and then things change. So that means whatever you're developing, it should not be too tied to a particular open source organization. The way at least we are trying to do things is something which works as an open source product or project, which can essentially be a product which can it's kind of an independent module which can work across anywhere, everywhere. Right. That's kind of the thought process in tackling this. And same goes with SDOs. There are umpteen. We filter and choose. We know how to filter signal from noise. So that's our expertise.
Okay, very interesting. Ramki Krishnan, thank you very much.
Thank you.